I don't think you need to, but I think it conveys something.
Yeah, so.
As far as I'm concerned, the distance around here negates the need for it. We all kept them on when we met last night,
Yeah.
obviously, even though we were at a distance on. I set tables up for it.
Well, so I welcome everyone, and just saying I'm going to keep my mask on, only because the Omicron is more transmissible, they're saying, and so I believe on erring on the side of caution and more for the protection of other people than myself. But thank you for being here. We have a couple people joining us online. I welcome you as well. And hopefully you will be able to hear and understand even with the masks. So why don't we have a moment of prayer? Lord God, we give you thanks for this day, for the opportunity to come together and to continue our journey of faith as we ponder the story of the wise men. We pray that we may hear you speaking to us through the insights that we share with one another. And we pray this, that we might follow the one who is and will always be the light of the world. Amen. All righty, so welcome. And I typed in the chat box that sometimes the most familiar stories are the hardest to gain new insights into. We're so familiar with them, we almost take them for granted. And that can be the case with the story of the wise men. But I actually had an interesting thought, and we'll see where it takes us. Your challenge today is to help me get the sermon started. I know what I want to say in the sermon, I just can't get the opening down. But without further ado, we will go to Matthew's Gospel, and that is where you will find the story of the wise men. You find the birth story in Luke, and you find the story of the wise men and the flight to Egypt in Matthew's Gospel. Hold on again. Oh, sorry about that. I didn't turn the volume on, so let me try again. I thought I had the volume up.
Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king. Behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star when it rose, and have come to worship him. When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And assembling all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. They told him, In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it is written by the prophet, And you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel. Then Herod summoned the wise men secretly, and ascertained from them what time the star had appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, Go, and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word, that I too may come and worship him. After listening to the king, they went on their way, and behold, the star that they had seen when it rose went before them until it came to rest over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. And going into the house, they saw the child with Mary his mother, and they fell down and worshipped him. Then opening their treasures, they offered him gifts, gold, and frankincense, and myrrh. And being warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they departed to their own country by another way.
All right. Questions, comments, and conundrums. Welcome, Diane, and Happy New Year to you as well. So there we have the story of the Magi, which There's also the word, root word, it's a Persian word, where we get the word magician. So, astrologers, they see the star, and there's all different theories as to exactly what the star was. And it's clear that they arrive in Bethlehem sometime after Jesus is born, because they find the babe in a house rather than in a manger. And so, anything in particular that catches your attention or perplexes you, or
For some reason, for the first time, it just occurred to me that we think of like the disciples being the ones to first like bring word to people outside of Israel.
Yeah.
But it actually started like these were not Jewish people.
That is correct.
This
is yeah.
Pakistani or something, right?
That is correct. The wise men were not Jews, and there are different theories as to where they were from, maybe Saudi Arabia, Persia, which is around today. Even I've heard thoughts of India, Ethiopia, but they were definitely not Jewish. And one of the reasons why we know that they were not Jewish is, where do they go to look for the king? Pardon me?
Right?
Well, they go to the palace in Jerusalem. Yeah. And they didn't know that the scriptures said that the Messiah was going to come from Bethlehem. And clearly they knew that this was a special child. Wasn't just a king. I mean, think about it. Why would they make this long trip to just see a newborn king? The only reason they would do it is if this was somebody who was going to be more than just your everyday, ordinary king. But clearly they don't realize that the child isn't going to be in the palace. And, you know, that makes sense. If you're not Jewish, you know that there's a newborn king, you're going to go to the palace in Jerusalem first, yes.
Well, that's interesting too, because there aren't usually newborn kings, there's princes.
See?
Unless the king like died or
Oh,
queen was like maybe in childbirth or something. But,
right.
I mean, usually if you're a king,
You ascend
he's
good
the
point.
prince, he's not a newborn king.
Right, so he would be the king's.
Somehow they discerned he was being born and immediately a king. So that is something.
That is interesting. I hadn't thought about that. So, you know, you look at Queen Elizabeth. She's been queen for over 70 years now.
Yeah.
But when she was born, she wasn't queen. She was a princess.
No, actually, she wasn't that.
Oh, that's true, because that's right. Because when she was born, her uncle Edward was
I
the.
think she's still a princess. But I think they call Prince Andrew's daughter.
Yeah, I said,
Okay.
but she wasn't an heir to the.
No, she wasn't. That's right. So
You had Tutankhamun.
what's that?
You had the boy king, he was Tutankhamun in Egypt.
Oh, Tutankhamun was the boy king, but
Right.
but even then he wasn't
designated.
he wasn't
to be born.
the king from the moment of his
Yeah, I
birth.
mean, there are in history boy kings and usually.
That's right.
Like that.
And so that's interesting, because they show up and they don't say where is he who will be king of the Jews. They say, where is he who has been born king of the Jews? Yeah, interesting. And hello, Charlene. Yes, they look in the palace. So that's interesting. So that clearly shows that they realize that this is someone who is more than a king. And obviously they have a messianic understanding of this child. One of the things that kind of fascinated me. Go ahead. Were you going to say something, Andy?
did Herod feel threatened by Jesus?
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, that's,
Absolutely, Herod felt threatened.
you know,
And that's, I see.
They were warned in a dream.
Yeah, they were warned in a dream not to go back to Herod
Right.
because Herod says, I want to go and worship him.
oh, yes.
Wanted to go
They
cut his
didn't
throat.
believe him. He wanted to kill
Well,
him.
we don't know if the wise men didn't believe him or if they were clueless, but they were just told not to go back to Herod. And verse 3, when Herod heard this,
He was struck.
he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And I always joke when I read that verse, to paraphrase it, if Herod ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. And Herod was ruthless. Couple of stories to show you how ruthless Herod was. He actually had all of his sons executed because he saw them as potential rivals to his throne. And so that led the historian Josephus to say that it was safer to be Herod's pig than Herod's son. The other thing that we know about Herod is that, I don't know if you call it a will, but he left instructions that when he died, his soldiers were to round up some of the leading citizens of Jerusalem and execute them. And the reason why is because he knew he was so despised, he was determined that some tears would be shed in Jerusalem when he died.
Yeah.
And so there would be some crying even if it wasn't for him. So he was quite a ruthless person. And when the wise men don't go back to him, it leads to what is known as the slaughter of the innocents. Herod sends his soldiers to Bethlehem and tells them to execute every male child 2 years of age and younger. And historians have estimated that could have been as many as 30 children because of the size of Bethlehem estimated at that time. But, you know,
Was he Roman?
say again?
Herod, was he Roman?
I'm not hearing.
Was he Roman?
Oh, good question. He must have been, because I wouldn't imagine that the Romans would allow someone who wasn't Roman to, be
He had to be.
a ruler. Yeah, I'll have to do some checking on that. But I'm pretty sure we know he wasn't Jewish. We do know he wasn't
He
Jewish.
was the regional leader appointed by Rome, whether he was Roman or not.
Right.
He may not have been a Roman citizen, but he may have been Roman.
I don't know. I'll have to do some research on Herod's background. But, I found the fact that the wise men didn't find Jesus where they thought they were going to find him. And that makes me wonder. You know the song Looking for Love in All the Wrong Places? That kind of applies here, because if Jesus is the embodiment of God's love, they were looking for it in the wrong place. Maybe that's the start to my sermon, looking for love in all the wrong places. And
He might be a servant, that might be, the choir singing that song.
yeah.
So remember the great evangelist Dwight Moody.
Yeah.
Dwight Moody, who found God in a shoe store in Boston, and he was working in a shoe store in Boston, and that's when he had an epiphany of faith, and really.
I'll have to look that up. I wasn't aware that he had his encounter with Lord in the shoe store.
Yes. Yeah.
Interesting.
In fact, there was a plaque. I think the building was near Scully Square when it was torn down, but there was a plaque on the building where we had this revelation.
Yeah. So here's the thing that has got my mind churning. We come here on Sunday morning because we expect to find Jesus here, right? But what if we get it all wrong?
That he's really out there and not in there.
We've been wasting our time.
No.
I'm not saying we're wasting our time.
We come to celebrate what we have found and witnessed out there in here.
Yeah,
And we do it corporately. We do it together.
This is a corporate gathering to support our beliefs. As
Right.
opposed to where we have found God to cause us to come here for that purpose.
Yeah. I'm not saying he isn't here, but what I'm wondering is, do we need to shift our focus to find him out there? And do we do that enough? And, I'm thinking of a guided meditation that I've done with the youth group from time to time over the years. And in the guided meditation, I invite them to close their eyes, and usually they'll lie down on the floor and they'll get relaxed. And then I invite them to imagine themselves sitting on the side of a hill. And there's a city down below, and it's getting dark, and the lights are coming on. And then I tell them, suddenly you hear a sound behind you, and you look behind you, and you see there's a holy man there. And the holy man says to you, if you go down into the city, tonight you will find God. And then I invite them to go down into the city, and you can go wherever you want, and you can look wherever you want, but you won't find God the first place you look. So keep looking. And then I eventually say, now, after a couple minutes, I'll say, now the next place you look, you'll find God. And I invite them to ask questions, listen, and then I invite them to go back up to the side of the hill and sit down and open their eyes, and the guided meditation ends. And it's fascinating what they share. And I'll ask them, where did you look for God first? And if you were to do the guided meditation, where would you look for God first?
Here.
Yeah, in a church.
No.
Church.
Here.
Oh, in your heart. Oh, interesting.
In yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
In your heart necessarily,
Well,
but
yeah.
part of yourself.
Okay. Usually, what they'll do though is they'll say they go into a cathedral, or they might go to a park, or something like that. And eventually, when I say the next place you look, you'll find God. Fascinating places: hospitals, nursing homes, slum. I think I even had somebody say once that they found God in a dump. And then they'll share what they asked and whatnot. And so I guess what I'm wondering is, if you don't find him out there, are you going to really find him in here? I mean, is that sound too radical?
No, I don't think so.
You don't think-
If you don't witness God's action and the results of God's love out there, you're gonna miss the whole point of being here.
Although sometimes when I come in here, I get a message that gives me a direction
Okay.
to apply when I go out.
Okay, that's a good point, Andy. So sometimes here you'll get a sense of direction when it comes to something you're dealing with out in the quote unquote real world. Yeah.
This, to me, like I said before, is reinforcement for it. That reminds us, so that it reminds you that out there, you need it. It's a support system, if you will. To me, whether I'm coming out from here, whether I'm going somewhere else, I think God is speaking to us always. We're not always listening.
God is always speaking to us.
It's part of that. And the other part of it is, if I've gone through an activity, I don't care whether it's doing a concert with the chorale,
Yeah.
singing choir here,
Singing,
doing
yeah.
a project somewhere or something. One of my common things when I get time afterwards, and it might be 5 minutes and it might be hours afterwards to say, thank you, God, for helping me through that. The conversation has gone on, but I'm not aware of it.
Yeah.
But it's there, and I feel compelled, thank God for helping me through it.
Yeah.
So that's the end of the conversation there, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
To indicate that the conversation went on, but it's not a conscious thing.
You know, maybe what I need to be careful of is not to send the message that this is an either or. Okay.
It's symbiotic, really.
Exactly. They go
You're
hand in
gonna
glove.
Live your faith. You
Right.
need to come and worship and learn.
That's right.
and be with other
Yeah.
Christians, and you need
They
to,
do.
Like, look, you need to evangelize in your actions anyway, and you need to like look for God and
Yep.
nature and other people's actions.
Yeah. And I guess as I'm thinking about this more, when we come here, it's, you know, it's peace. It's sort of, this is sort of like the palace, the wise men going to the palace. Everything is nice, you know, you get a sense that you're in a place of peace and it's comfortable, yes, in some respects. And that's where the wise men go initially, but they don't find the Christ child there. They find the Christ child where? In a little rundown town, dirt poor parents, parents who are soon to be refugees, and I guess I look at this and I see a cautionary message here to not limit your faith to finding the Jesus who's nice and neat and wrapped in, you know, the swaddling cloths and you know, behind the birth story, which we tend to romanticize, there's a lot of not so nice stuff. And we see it here in this story too. And so I see in the story an invitation to look for him in the places that we would rather not go. Okay.
In which I know all of us have been exposed to, read or something, stories of the Holocaust. People
The Holocaust,
going into
yeah.
Auschwitz and places like that.
Yeah.
The tremendous caring and giving one person has done for another person. They're all going to die. They're all going to go in a gas chamber or something. But the life-sustaining, caring acts that people have done for each other that have been told in the stories that we've heard about the sadness of the Holocaust. Tell about God's work at that time with those people.
Yeah. You're talking about the Holocaust and the incredible horror, but also the incredible stories of sacrifice and grace. I'm trying to remember.
Sometimes, like the poor people
Mhm.
are the smiley of you for saying that with your trip to Africa, right? They're happy.
Yes.
You're like feeling sorry for them before you got there, probably. Oh, these poor people.
Yeah, the poor people and
they're like,
they're dancing and what was it? Ghana that you went to?
And Sierra Leone.
Ghana and Sierra Leone. And yes, we saw the videos and they were clearly, you know, full of joy. And
support this nonprofit in Ipswich called Partners in Development, and they try to help an entire community that's like in
okay, Partners in Development.
And they have several places now, but they had a place in Guatemala, village, and village in Haiti. And when Haiti had a big earthquake, the director was actually with the people in Guatemala.
Sure.
Who had like nothing.
Right.
And they sent like, oh, you're going here. They were all coming up with bags of rice to bring to the people of Haiti.
To Haiti, even though they had very little.
They have nothing themselves.
Yeah.
They were like, oh my gosh.
Right. Exactly.
Poor people here.
And as I think about this, what the story is inviting us to do is to find Jesus in those places that aren't nice and neat and pretty. in the muck and the mud. And you know what I'm thinking about too is a yearly scripture that's coming up in just a few weeks in February, the Transfiguration. Okay, if you remember the Transfiguration, Jesus goes to the top of the mountain with Peter, James, and John, and while they're at the top of the mountain, what does Peter say?
Well, let's stay here.
Yes, he
This is
wants to
cool.
build.
I want to stay here with you, Lord.
That's right. He wants to build 3 booths or 3 tents, one for Jesus, and who are the other 2 for? Elijah and
Oh,
Moses.
Yeah,
Yeah, Elijah and Moses. And the reason why Elijah and Moses is because they're the 2 representatives of the Jewish faith. Moses representing the law, and Elijah being the prophet par excellence, and the prophets were basically the interpreters of the law. Thus says the Lord. And so they're talking to Jesus about his departure at Jerusalem, and it's a transcendent moment. It is truly a mountaintop experience, and Peter wants to stay there. He wants to make it last. And what is Jesus?
Like the kids, they want every day to be Christmas.
They want every day to be Christmas. Yes, exactly. You can't, no, you can't have that every day.
And then you come to the fellow who goes up to talk to God, and down says, here, and he says he's down here among my people.
Yeah.
It's the reality of the transition from where this is what the kids want to get back.
Yeah, there's a poem, I climbed the highest steeple, and God said, go down again, I dwell among the people. But this is taking, and back to the Transfiguration, Jesus says no. He says, we're going back down to the muck and the mud and the messiness of the real world. And so I see in this story an invitation to go out and look for him in the messy places of our world. Where would be some of the places that you would think?
Street people, bus.
Street people in Boston?
Right, and Mass and Cass.
Mass and Cass?
Yeah.
Yes, the
That's where they are.
Yeah.
I think the hospitals are all the ICUs are filled up with COVID.
yeah, COVID, yeah. And
Prisons.
say again?
Prisons.
Prison, yeah.
Prisons, youth detention centers.
Youth detention centers, yeah.
The immigration places at the borders that are happening right now. where
Immigration
people are trying to
places.
get a life and run away from the fears that they had.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, I look at this and I see an invitation to find him out there. Let's see, you've got a comment coming in. For the most generous people with the time and resources are those who have the least. Yeah, exactly. I remember a story about someone who worked for a social service agency or something in Appalachia, and there'd been a series of really bad snowstorms, and they went through the deep snow way out into the woods, and they knocked on the door of this house and said who they were, and the wives said, I'd like to help, but it's been a really tough winter. Not realizing that he was there to help her. She's saying, I'd really like to help, but it's been a really tough winter. And so, I guess when you do that, when you look for all the messy places out there, you're going to meet him maybe in a deeper way and in a more profound way in here. Yes, Don.
When we go to all these places and people that we've all talked about is where is God needed and where do you see God working? I think what you just said about here is one of the real problems on it, because those are so obvious and so painful.
Yes.
And we're needed as God's representatives there, but we're needed as God's representative here. How much quiet pain is going on here that we need to reach out to each other for, because we're not aware of it going on. And God needs to use us there. I think we need to be open to hearing God through someone who's feeling pain close to us as well as far away.
Yeah, I would say that, and Diane mentions one of the places where you would look for him. And this is a very profound example, is Mother Teresa working with the Untouchables in Calcutta. And absolutely. Yeah, I look at this and I see that. Any other insights into this?
What happened to Herod? How did his life end, or what happened after all this? Did he have any more impact on him?
So, he obviously died. I believe that he ruled for, we know that he died in 4 BC. So he died not long after Jesus was born. And again, that's why we know that Jesus wasn't born in the year 1, because he was born during the reign of Herod the Great. We know that Herod the Great died in 4 BC. So Jesus was probably born. Jesus was probably born 4 to 6 BC. Yep.
And when his parents brought him back from Egypt, that means it was, in quotes, safe from that act again.
Well, so interesting. I believe in Matthew's gospel, when they come back from Egypt, they were originally looking at maybe Bethlehem, but it said that because of, I have to remember, actually, I can look it up. Hold on, give me a second here. Let me find it here. Matthew 2. Alrighty, so it says, and they remained in Egypt until the death of Herod. This was, okay, I'm trying. Okay, but when Herod died, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt, saying, "Rise, take the child and his mother, and go to the land of Israel, for those who sought the child's life are dead." And he rose and took the child and his mother and went to the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was reigning over Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. And being warned in a dream, he withdrew to the district of Galilee, and he went and lived in a city called Nazareth, so that what was spoken by the prophets might be fulfilled, that he would be called a Nazarene. Well, that's an incorrect understanding of what Nazarene was. A Nazarene was wasn't somebody from Nazareth. It was somebody who pledged to live a holy life, and they had to could drink no alcohol. And you know what the other thing was? I'll tell you. There's a famous Nazarene in the Hebrew Scriptures, and you know him, although you may not realize that he is a Nazarene. And I'll give you the other qualification, one of the other qualifications for being a Nazarene. Couldn't cut your hair. Couldn't cut your hair. Samson was a Nazarene.
That's why the Baptists wouldn't allow all the dancing and the things. My grandmother being one, we would go there, and on Sunday was a pious time. You didn't play games, you didn't party, you didn't do any of that on Sunday.
Yeah. So, I look at this, and I look at the wise men and think, they really weren't so wise. In some respects, they come across as clueless. Okay, I can give them a pass that they go to the palace in Jerusalem because they're not Jews, and that's where you would look for a newborn king. But they have to be warned in a dream not to go back to Herod. Think about it. Would God warn them if they, on their own, were saying, you know what, better not go back to Herod because I don't trust him? They have to be warned in a dream. I can understand God warning Joseph in a dream to flee because Joseph hasn't had any direct encounter with Herod, and he doesn't know what's Herod is planning. Okay, but the wise men have been with Herod. They kind of, I guess they don't have they don't pick up on signals very well because they have to be warned.
Because Herod and Putin have a lot in common, like
Well,
dealing with an ex-KBG agent, they just realize that the duplicity of it. Oh, isn't that nice? He wants to go and worship too.
Yeah,
with a sword and behind his back.
And Herod was a famous person. They must have had some idea about his reputation. Yep.
Well, he was in travel.
What's that?
I mean, it's not like today.
True. It's not like back then you didn't have the internet, so what somebody does here doesn't get known over here in a matter of instant.
I mean, you have to remember, like, people only, like in England, only knew what the king looked like because of the picture on the money, but
True.
people, like, you could have a whole conversation with him and they wouldn't have any
True.
clue he was the king.
Yep.
And he wasn't
Yep.
dressed like a king, talked like a king. So,
Yep. Okay. So maybe not be so hard on the wise men because we don't have enough information. Yep.
But we
Yep.
know just by the virtue of that these are substantial people, the wise men. They brought wealthy gifts.
They did.
They traveled in large trains. They were secure traveling through dangerous areas. I don't think they feared Herod, but not going back and being warned was for the sake of the baby, rather than the sake of them. I don't think.
Oh, no, I know, absolutely.
And
Yes.
I don't think their image of Herod would have related to a fear for the sake of the baby.
No.
I think the distress and everything is, they were on a level, they knew him, he wasn't a trusted guy, but that wouldn't have been a fear of going back. The fear was for the sake of the baby. They shouldn't go back and tell him what the baby
Oh,
was.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. They're not concerned about themselves.
Right.
They're concerned about the child. And you think about it, what happens to the wise men isn't fair.
What did happen to them?
They went back to their own countries.
Yeah.
So
We never hear about them again.
And Herod never found them.
Not that we're aware of. That we're aware of. I mean, there's so much about the wise men. Again,
Why is it unfair that they just go back? I mean, we still read about them, that's pretty cool.
I'm sorry, what is it?
Why do we say it's unfair?
Oh, why do I say it's unfair? Oh, I'm sorry. So for this reason, you got to think that the wise men are over here. I'm just going to say Persia, okay? And they're going to take the best route to Jerusalem, right?
Yeah.
If they have to go home by another way, you've got to believe that it's longer and probably not as easy.
Right.
Okay, and so in that sense, their situation, they do this good deed, and what do they get for it? They have to find another way home, and also being warned in a dream not to go back to Herod. Okay, they have to at this point realize that there's a threat here, and so they're going home wondering. Probably looking over their shoulders, is he sending somebody after us? Because clearly Herod has made it clear to them that he wants to know where the kid is.
Yes.
And they have information that he wants, okay? And so when he finds out that he's been double-crossed, we don't know, but it's possible that he sent some of his soldiers out looking for them. Okay, so at the very minimum, I'm imagining them going home by a way that's longer, that's more difficult, and they're looking over their shoulder. And why? They didn't do anything wrong, but that's the reality,
They were wise enough to know the reality.
They were wise enough to know the reality. They were wise enough to listen. Okay, they could have gotten this dream and then said, oh, Yeah, exactly. Must have been something I ate last night that disagreed with me. Well, like Scrooge. You might be a blot of mustard or something under just a piece of beef.
They responded to some dream somewhere to come in the first place.
Say again, please.
They responded to some dream or something that influenced them to come in the first place.
That's right.
So they were obviously perhaps more aware than most people.
Yeah.
And more sensitive than most people.
Yes. Well,
maybe that's why they were called wise.
Yeah, and in some respects, people back then were more sophisticated than we are.
Yes.
In this way. Back then, they listened. They saw dreams as a way of God communicating. Not all dreams, but some dreams, okay? And that's kind of the point that I was making in the sermon Sunday, where I shared those two dreams where I literally had a glimpse of the future, okay? Those dreams had to come from somewhere. And I think what fascinates people about things like that is that they look at something like that and they say, that there's something greater out there, okay? And so in that sense, people in the ancient world, I think, were more aware of the different ways that God sometimes reaches out to us. After I gave that sermon, by the way, Karen Weberg came to me. She was here just to let people know that we weren't worshiping. And so she stayed to push the button on the,
I was wondering.
that one point where
Because the camera angle changed while you were in the.
So she did that. So, but anyways, after the sermon was over, she told me that her brother had a dream where he saw the Challenger spacecraft explode before it happened. Yeah.
That's not as fun as my roommate Darlene went through a short clairvoyant period to your college dream that I was going to go and we're dating and be done.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow! So this is a roommate in college, and she told you that you and Joe were going to meet, and you weren't even.
We were friends, but we weren't dating.
Oh wow! Oh, yeah. So I do believe that. the other.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! Wow. So there is something out there. So the wise men clearly were more plugged in to the sacred, I think, than we are today. So I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm going to go with this sermon or if I'm going to change course.
One of the interesting things was the obvious, and if you step back and look at it, wait a minute, the wise men are foreigners.
They are foreigners. Yes.
They are non-Jews,
right?
Implying that the birth of this young king, of this baby king, is for everyone, not just for the Jewish community.
That's right.
Not just for what's going to happen in Jerusalem, but
the entire world. Yes. So that is a big part of the Epiphany story, and that's why it's called the Epiphany, the revelation. Okay, and it's interesting because usually the theme of universal salvation, or the universal Jesus being for everyone, is in Luke's gospel. We saw it last week when Simeon takes the child and he says, Lord, now you are letting your servant depart in peace according to your word, for my eyes have seen your salvation, which you've revealed for all the people, a light for revelation to the Gentile and glory for your people Israel. Matthew doesn't have that universal theme running through his gospel. He's writing for a Jewish audience to convince Jews that Jesus is the Messiah. So it's interesting that Matthew has a story where these foreigners come and pay homage to the Christ child. So there is a lot in here.
From a purely travel perspective, I would say it's always better to go home by another way and see different stuff.
Ooh, it's always better to go home by another way. So that way you see.
A loop is always better than a half.
Oh, interesting.
A hiker would say that.
A hiker would say that. Okay, it's always better to go home by another way.
Wow.
Or a seasoned traveler who wants to just see new things.
Huh.
You know, it's funny because you can talk to my wife, she will tell you, if we go somewhere, we will never return by the same route.
Oh,
We
interesting.
will always use a different route.
But one of my favorite sayings, and I have to go back and find out who said it, goes something like this: the adventure of life does not consist on seeing new things. It is seeing what's already there with new eyes.
Right?
Well, I think you see more new things than you see the things that you normally see when you buy. That's why you travel.
Yes,
Yeah,
I travel. Yep. I want to see new things. Yep.
Understanding of the world and
Yep.
people in it.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
come to the
yeah.
realization that people are the same wherever
Right,
they
yeah.
are.
Yeah.
Like Don Tardif and I hiked pretty much the same area behind his house.
Yeah.
And, as you do throughout the year, that same area looks different,
It's interesting.
you know, with the water levels,
Yeah,
the trees.
So I always say, you know, you can have a favorite spot in a river, okay? And maybe you go to this state park every year, and you go to this spot in the river and you dip your foot in the river. It's the same river, but it isn't the same river. Okay, it's the same river flowing, but it's different water, it's different grass, you know, different temperature of the water, things like that. So yeah, boy, we're getting very deep and philosophical.
There was that wonderful poem, Ithaca, by the
Oh yeah,
by Cavafy, the Egyptian Greek poet, and it stressed, and it says, and in parts of it, pray that your journey may be long, because it is not the destination, but it is
the journey.
It is the journey. It is the things that happen along the route.
Yeah.
The real treasures, are not.
Somehow though, I can't picture the wise men going home by another way and saying, "Oh, look at that interesting rock formation over there." Maybe, I don't know. I just.
Well, because we've never discovered or read their journals.
No.
Yeah,
They were probably motivated in getting to their destination.
Well, that's my thing. And the other thing too is if they're looking over their shoulder, they want to get home as fast as they can. They want to get as far away from Herod as they can.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, I have a dusty old sermon that I might pull out and pull the dust off and update it. Basically, the point of the sermon is what made the wise men so wise. So I'm going to end on that note. We got a couple comments here. We often return via a different way when on a ride somewhere, so we see different things. Yeah, Charlene is commenting on your comment, Leslie. We often return via a different way when on a ride somewhere so that we see different things. That's interesting. Yeah, there's some truth to that. Yeah. But my mind is saying, yeah, but when you're going home, you may be seeing the same things, but you're seeing them from a different angle. So when I'm driving the car, I'm kind of looking over here, but I'm not seeing everything over there. So, well, okay.
We drove from Death Valley to Joshua Tree.
Yeah.
And then we had to drive back from Joshua Tree to the Las Vegas airport. And when we drove to Joshua Tree, I was kind of disappointed because I thought we were going to see some like desert.
Sure.
Like high desert.
High desert, yeah.
And stuff. Didn't see any. Totally bummed out. On the way back, we crested this hill, and there was like miles of it.
Oh, yeah.
Why the heck did we see this on the way?
Yeah.
But there was some other thing that distracted us. And we were
Yeah.
like, it was like an industrial thing. We were like looking it up and trying to figure out what they were doing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I thank you all, and thank you for joining us online. What's today, the 5th? So the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be away. I'm going on vacation. I don't know whether I'm going to have the vacation I had planned since I was going on a cruise, but we shall see. But no. You know, and it's funny you should say that, because my friend I cruise with, he's perfectly content to go to the same places over and over again. And I want to go to new places that I haven't seen. You know, I want to do a cruise that goes from Dubai around the Arabian Peninsula, and it's going to stop in Aqaba, which will allow me to see Petra and Luxor in Egypt and whatnot. I want to see different things. I don't want to go to Tortola for the 6th time. All righty. Thank you very much, everyone.
Dale,